Hey guys, delighted to have Keith Neumeyer, CEO of First Majestic, one of the big, well-known, almost a banner stock in the silver industry. Keith, thanks for making time out to chat with us today.
Well, it's great to meet you for the first time.
Yeah, indeed. I have actually seen quite a lot of your content on YouTube, and you've been very, very generous in actually helping me understand both the silver market dynamics, its role in the world, and everything else. But a lot of miners and resources here. And the big story, I suppose, is currently the commodity and the metal itself is doing a little better than the miners. What's happening, and when does that change from your best point of view?
It's a really good question, and I get asked that question all the time. And I think this is very similar to 2000. And I've been in the market for a long time. I've been doing executive roles in the mining sector for 35 years, and then I've got this trading blood in me that is from my background during the 80s when I was working for the banks in Canada. So I think I have a pretty good sense of the market, and I really think we need to see a correction in the major markets because the major markets are just sucking so much money. And I in my presentations midday today, I don't have the stats in front of me, but we had like a $120 million move in Tesla and a $110 million move in NVIDIA, all in 1 week.
Yeah.
Right. And the entire silver sector is $27 billion.
Yeah.
A tiny proportion of the market value of some of these tech stocks.
Yeah.
So all this money is being dragged into these tech stocks. And, I remember back in 2000, I just left First Quantum at the time. I left First Quantum in 2000. And I was kind of just like floundering around for a couple of years. And in March of 2000, the NASDAQ was at 5,000 at the time. And over the next 3 years, it dropped 80%.
Correct.
It went down to like 850 or something like that. And that was the light under the resource sector.
Yes.
Because, you had silver at $5, you had gold at 240. Where'd that money go?
Yeah.
It had to go somewhere. So the money went into real estate, went into real assets, gold, silver, miners, and so on and so forth. Now we had a 10-year bull market in the mining sector, which was fantastic for all of us. It ended quickly, unfortunately.
Yeah, 2011.
Yeah, 2011 exactly. And now we've been in this kind of bear market, sideways market.
Yeah.
And you look at the GDX and compare it to what it was even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's quite a lot lower. And we have record gold prices, record silver, silver, well, not record silver, but still, silver has only hit $30 3 times in our lifetime.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And yet the stocks, like our stock, is like super cheap. I don't know why, but it's just because there's no money. There's no money coming into the sector.
So one clear possibility, just summarizing what you're saying, is that it's almost a parasitic element. The tech being so strong, it's a fireball oxygen thief. It's just taking a lot of the liquidity and hoovering it up and just keeps giving people what they want. And so it's too much of a momentum-based market. It's too much theme-driven. Everyone talks AI. Everyone is chips, and that's becoming an element. Is part of that also a PR element for mining specifically? They're not getting their message across of what great value is across. It's the Wall Street, the big brokers don't want to talk about it because there's that herding mentality as well. Is there a PR media aspect?
I don't think the mining sector does a great job in promoting itself.
Yeah.
The mining sector is so critical to the world economy.
Yeah.
Yet people ignore it.
Yes.
The governments around the world want us to go green and want us to do all these fantastic things, and create electric cars and solar panels and computers and nuclear plants now, which is kind of new, but nevertheless, without metal, it's not going to happen.
Correct.
Yet at the same time, they're not allowing us to permit mines.
Yeah.
It still takes 20 years to permit a mine.
Yeah.
So you as an investor have to, you've got a long game ahead of you.
Yeah.
Right. You could play the exploration swings and the development swings and construction swings and all that kind of stuff. But it's tough. And so the institutions just have no flavor, I guess, or no motivation to invest in the sector.
Yeah, because the story is all about the tech, how much more hours you'll get out of your battery and this one will do that. The tech always seems to take over. It's not, hey, the components of this are required to start in the first place. and it never comes back to the grassroots. It's always about the sizzle.
Yeah, for sure. And look, they need to make money, of course, on a quarterly basis. And for a miner, we don't look quarterly.
Yeah.
We look multi-year.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just doesn't fit.
Yeah. Yeah. Instead, there's too much of a short-termism and a herding element to appreciate it. But people will say I'm giving the miners an easy time if I don't ask a tougher question along the lines of, say, if we look, and it was mentioned in the great event that we're attending, both of us here, some of the miners, dilution has taken place, and actual gold ounces in the ground per share have gone down in many, many instances. Has management in the industry also done themselves a disservice, and are we actually not comparing like for like anymore in the equities? Some of the people that are frustrated might say, we need to own some of that. What would your comment be?
What's the management team going to do? They're going to shut down?
Yeah.
Because that's their choice.
Yeah.
So okay, we're not going to sell any stock. We're not going to raise any more money.
Can't raise debt.
Yeah. So we're just going to stop the business,
Yeah.
fire everyone,
Yeah.
pay minimum rent, and we'll just put our name on the door, and we'll just wait for the market to happen.
Yeah.
And the market will come to us.
Yeah.
For me, I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Management teams need, if the project's, is all obviously warranted and it's a reasonable project and should be financed, then management team has to focus on getting it financed. And unfortunately, the big institutions, the pension funds, the mutual funds that used to be in this market a decade ago aren't there today.
Yeah.
We've got ETFs.
So cost of funding is higher.
It is, and harder to get.
Yeah, and longer, as you've also said, to get projects off the ground.
Yeah.
Plus the inflation elements. I mean, I've asked the question, but I also want to come into your defense. Costs haven't got any cheaper, have they?
No.
Making a hole in the ground doesn't get any cheaper to do. It's a lot of energy expenditure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can blame management teams. I think that's unfair. It's just where the market is.
Yeah.
And it will change, of course. It always does. But you just kind of question, really, where is? There's an interesting interview on Kitco by Frank Juster and Pierre Lassonde. I don't know, 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And they were talking about the lack of investment from the Canadian pension plan.
Yeah.
So the Australian pension plan is required to make a minimum of investment in equities within their marketplace, right?
Which would
and then in Canada, there's no law like that. So CPP apparently has like 70% of their money, and it's a big amount. It's like close to $1 trillion, invested worldwide outside of Canada, and there's no obligation for them to buy Canadian publicly listed companies, which is stupid.
Yeah.
And I remember a decade ago, CPP owned First Majestic.
Yeah.
And I would have meetings with them on an annual basis. And we had the big pension fund out of British Columbia, also a big position. I think they were a 5% owner at one time.
Yeah.
Gone. Yeah. Nowhere close. And they're I don't know whether it's ESG related, environmental related. Mining is a dirty business. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But it's got to change.
Are we at that point that uranium? So we're at Rick Rule's symposium, and he was very much credited with the man who said it's the most hated industry with uranium. Mm-hmm. Are we getting to that point with silver mining that we could get? Nobody wants to give you permits. You're the guys ripping up the planet. All the bad PR that probably is not justified. There's a lot of good work going on in raising up local communities and other aspects. Eventually, that PR will get won. But are we at that point? We're close to being pretty well hated. Hard to get funding. Hard to do a lot of things, and that there's a chance that any form of flippening could start to open up a little bit of appreciation coming back in on the PE multiples of that.
It's a good question. We need to see that happen, obviously. What's the catalyst to drive that change? I personally think it's just supply.
Yeah.
And it's going to be price related.
Yeah.
Where we're seeing silver moving, copper, I'm a bull on copper. As well, and I think we're going to see $8 plus copper, $50 plus silver, and when we start seeing those prices, and governments come to the industry, because governments will come to the industry and say, what's going on? Why cannot we do? We're out there, selling this green revolution, and you're not supplying us with the metals that we need.
Yeah.
I think that
conversation will be interesting.
It is happening to a small degree among some of the smarter politicians that are actually following this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's early stages.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a breaking point at some point where they say, okay, we have to make it easier for the mining sector to get permits. I was watching Phil Baker's presentation today, and then he did an average of how long it takes to permit a mine. 17.9 years from discovery to production. How do you do that? That's ridiculous.
The guy who found it's probably dead by the time it gets around to giving gravy as we have.
Yeah, and all the investors that you have to suck in along the way, and because investors want payback.
Yeah,
and you can't give them 17-year paybacks.
No,
it's not going to work.
No. I find myself, I remember as a South African, we had De Beers and the Central Selling Organization in diamonds, and I kind of wish that the silver miners sometimes got their heads together and actually released enough silver to cover costs and maybe a very minor return to keep things going, but actually sat on supply and almost forced the supply issue so that we could get pricing moving. I mean, it would be cartelism, it would be some form of monopolization, but so was De Beers' conduct. Would that bring the governments to the table? Would that also see the pricing move? Because you've not really been compensated for the degree of inflation yet, given the costs. Could that ever happen, or are they too fragmented and too competitive amongst each other?
It's easy to talk about it, but it's almost impossible to accomplish.
Yeah.
Because what happens is a mine produces a concentrate.
Yeah.
So this concentrate is a pile of black powder, full of 40, 50 minerals, and a lot of the minerals like selenium and, other stuff, I don't want to get too technical, but that the mine never gets paid for.
Yeah.
But the important stuff, the copper, the lead, the zinc, the silver, the gold, that's where the company gets paid.
Yeah.
And yet it takes, 60 to 90 days for that payment to come to the mining company.
Yeah.
And it goes to Asia, gets shipped over to Korea or Japan or China or wherever it gets shipped to. And that metal never shows up in North America.
Right.
It all stays in industry and just gets consumed by Asian industry.
Yeah.
If you're producing a dory bar like we are producing, then, we can bring that metal to the market, in a refined form, and we can affect the market. But there's not enough guys like us. Like we opened our first mint, which we can talk about, for that exact purpose, to try to, get some of this metal into the retail investors and outside of the banking system, because they're the ones that are actually driving price.
Yes.
It's really not fair for the miners because we're at the mercy of the banks.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s when the whole COMEX system was created, it works well. Like if you're an executive of a mining company, it's a 5-minute phone call. Hey, I want to sell 100,000 ounces of silver at $30. Boom, you're done. You get a check in 3 days.
Yeah.
Like, what's better than that?
No.
You don't need a workforce. You don't need a sales force. You don't need to be phoning Tesla or Panasonic or Samsung and, hey, can you buy our metal, please? And then go through this whole sales process and sign 12-month contracts. And, the banks do it all.
Yeah.
So they run the pricing system.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the miners have given that up to the banks.
Yeah.
And one of the things I speak of all the time is try to get some control back.
Yes. And you mentioned in that, and let's bring that in, you're producing, so you're controlling the alpha to omega, the full process on some of your silver, and you're actually producing a bar of your own. Give us some of the insight. That, of course, is that part of production does bring you back control.
To some degree.
Some degree.
Yeah. And exactly. But unfortunately, it's there's more, producing a dory bar, which is a bar of metal that contains, mostly silver and gold and other metals, copper, lead, and zinc. But that goes to a refinery,
Process,
not a smelter.
Yeah.
So smelters really don't exist in North America.
Right.
Because it's a dirty industry and no one wants a smelter in their backyard. Yeah. So, over the last 30, 40 years, all the smelting has gone into Asia.
Wow.
And so it's almost like you can't even transport this stuff on highways. And then a lead con, you have to have a special permit to drive it on a highway in North America. Wow. And it's very difficult to get. So what they do is they just put it on a boat and ship it to China.
Wow.
It's the easiest thing to do. And they get paid, as I said, a couple months later. But if you have a dory bar, which is a relatively pure product, you need the right type of mine, the right type of rock, or that's leachable with the right type of chemicals. Right. And then, so it's a unique situation.
What kind of percentage purities are you getting on a Dory bar? This is all new for me. So.
Yeah, like a Dory bar will be 93 to 97% silver, 3 to 5% gold. Yeah. And, small amounts of copper, small amounts of lead and zinc. Yeah. But,
it's an investable item then. Really.
We had, it's funny, back in 2017, we had 7 mines operating in Mexico. Yeah. And today we have 3. I shut down 4 concentrate mines.
Wow.
Just because the headache. Yeah. Because no one makes money except the traders. Yeah. The guys, buying your con and selling it to the smelters in China, they're the guys that make all the money. Yeah. And the mining company, just kind of picks up the scraps. Yeah. If it wasn't for the gold and silver, you'd probably lose money. Yeah. So we got out of that business. It's not the end of the world. There are good cons out there that can demand decent values because of grades. Yeah. But a lot of the con is kind of low grade, marginal stuff and the smelters, make you, they kind of put you over the, whatever.
Put you over the barrel.
Exactly.
It real hard. Sun don't shine. Yeah. I get it.
So, so for us to be, having 3 producing mines that produce just Dory bars is a great place to be.
Yeah. Nice. Talk to us about Majestic and how you see 3 to 5 year plans. So if there is a potential new shareholder out there watching this video right now, or there's our existing ones, best case scenario, we all bullish here. We think $30 silver is now the new support level. As a technician, I feel that. Mm-hmm. I feel gold has broken out. We needed our God market to move. It has. Silver has now followed. In the cylinder firing order, I think mining is, once silver really gets its boots on, it's going to start following through. But assuming even just at current levels, 3 to 5 years, how do you feel about First Majestic's place, and what would you like to see have happen?
We'll be bigger.
Bigger?
For sure. There's no doubt about that. I built this company through M&A. Yeah. And I'm not a geologist or an engineer. I'm a finance guy. I came from the banks. I like to buy stuff. Yes. And that's how we built this business. And your mines have a limited life. Yeah. You have to accept that. You're
so you're not acquiring, you're dying in some senses, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you got to keep your eyes open. And we have a whole team of people in the company that just follow M&A opportunities. And we've got, lots of discussions going on internally about what should we do next and how we build the company. I can't get into too much detail on that, of course, but it's, you're likely going to see some more M&A activity, but just by that, even if nothing happened in the next 2 to 3 years, San Dimas has gone through, our biggest mine, San Dimas. It's gone through some challenges over the last 3-4 quarters, just because we're changing from one vein structure to a new vein structure. So that's going to rectify itself over the next couple of quarters. So production will start to increase again. It was producing, at its peak, close to 14 million ounces. Now it's about 12. Yeah. So, I think reasonably it could be 14, 15 again. Great. But it'll take a couple of years to get there. And then our other mine, which is our second largest mine, this past year it produced just sub of 10 million ounces. Great. And this year we're projecting around 9, but I can easily see that over the next couple of years going over 10. So, you add that to the San Diego 25, then plus our smaller mine, our smallest mine is at 3. So we're at 28 compared to today about 21, 22. Yeah. So there's growth there just with our current portfolio.
Yeah. Jared, Canyon had been a bit of a problem for a while cost-wise. How's the update? Is that going to take a similar trajectory of coming around?
Well, the mill needs investment. Yeah. The winter that hit this part of the world last winter, the winter of 22, was pretty devastating. Yeah. You had like minus 30 degrees, for weeks and weeks and weeks. And it was like, and then the mill wasn't properly winterized. Yeah. So we need to make a fairly substantial investment in the mill. Yeah. And that's going to happen over the next 2 years. But in the meantime, we're actually starting drilling next week. Yeah. So it's our first drilling program that we've activated since we closed the mine down. So we're spending $10 million there over the next 6 months, and our geos are are, they have their views. I'm hoping they're right, because, we've got 3.7 million ounces of gold that are already defined, but they think there's an elephant there.
Oh.
So, we'll see. We're dealing with Mother Nature. We're dealing with geological theories. Hopefully my guys are right. And if they are, then combined with a 2-year drilling program starting next week, as I said, plus the reinvestment in the mill, we're looking at a 2-year program of getting that operation up and running again.
And in the sort of 3 to 5 year window, what could be possible? Let's say you're a bit of a lottery ticket and your geologists are there or thereabouts with what they suspect in terms of production and
well, you had we had our objection was to produce 200,000 ounces of gold.
Yeah.
At Jarrett Canyon.
Yeah.
We're producing 100,000 ounces of gold currently at our other operations, plus about 11 million ounces of silver.
Yeah.
So on an equivalency basis, we're 21 to 23 million ounces of silver equivalent. You add 200,000 ounces at Jarrett Canyon on top of that, you're pushing 50 million silver equivalent ounces.
Yeah.
And that's reasonable. That's like, 2 to 3 years. That could happen.
Yeah, great. That sounds very encouraging, and to be a different place and a bigger place. And will that translate into additional ounces per share, or do you think the funding is going to keep you at current ratios, or could you even dilute?
I've heard that. I don't follow that number. I heard someone else mention that earlier today, actually.
Yeah,
and it's just not a number we track. So it's a good question.
Yeah, but who knows? Okay, awesome. And then the macro, something to finish up with. Debt markets seem to be very, very tenuous and collapsing. You're a finance guy, as you highlighted. This is something you'll have some macro commentary on. And our sort of house views, people are expecting bigger cuts than they think, and that it's gold and silver only really go up on cuts. But actually, if the debt markets are collapsing, we could get a disorderly interest rate spike. That could be incredibly good for metals, because people are going to they're going to exit the bond markets. They're going to go, where's safe? And there's good old faithful for multi-millennia standing there in the form of gold and silver ounces. How do you see that side of things? What's your take?
Well, I don't buy the story. So, I don't think interest rates have any impact on gold or silver prices.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that theory.
Yeah.
We've had interest rates go from basically zero to 5%.
And gold's gone up.
And exactly. Yeah. So why does all of a sudden people get excited about rates going down?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't quite get it. I think it's more just inflation.
Yeah.
It's the cost of living.
Yeah.
Related to energy prices, related to salary levels.
Yeah.
Real estate levels. It's just it's a combination of a variety of factors that drive commodities.
Yeah.
And you need to buy a house, and you need to buy copper.
Yeah.
Or whatever you're going to buy.
100%.
Or you're going to buy a new refrigerator. People. There's a lot of wealth creation going on in the world, and I was seeing some stats on India earlier today, and the Indian growth is just phenomenal.
Yes.
And people are comparing India to what happened in China from the early '90s to the the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
And that 20-year growth pattern that China went through. India's just starting that.
And they culturally massive gold and silver buyers as
huge
well.
Buyers.
Pick up wealth.
Huge buyers.
Yeah.
So, I think that the number I saw earlier, there was like 70 million ounces of silver imported into India, last year, which is crazy numbers. And, if the wealth generation matches the Chinese wealth generation, you're talking about, 1.2 billion people, all of a sudden becoming wealthy and buying shit.
Yeah.
That's going to help the miners, I think.
A whole bunch.
Yeah.
That's been excellent. Keith, any final message for people if they wish to engage or get more? How would people contact you or keep up to date with your progress?
Well, I'm on Twitter, Keith_Neumeyer. I don't do a lot there, but, go to info@firstmajestic.com. If you want to following First Majestic. I'm also the chairman of a company called First Mining Gold, which is in the most boring permitting stage of a gold mine in Ontario. People might want to look at it, but it's, permitting is always
pretty slow,
a very slow process. But, in the silver space, obviously First Majestic is one of the leaders. And, if you guys if your readership ever wants to reach out to us, call us on our line or just send us an email at info@ and we'll reply.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much for your time and chatting with us today. Really appreciate it.
Well, that's nice. Yeah, nice to meet you as well.